Was there anything specific that we learned from the recent floods and resulting community response that will help us be more prepared for the next time something happens like this?
Well, that's an excellent question, and it's a question that I can, at this stage of the game, give a partial answer to. I mean, we learned that some things that are delightful. We learned that this community, we learned all over again that this community is wonderfully responsive when faced with a threat like this. Whether it was volunteers or donated materials or donated equipment, we learned that we've got deep capacity for volunteer service in Grand Rapids. We learned that our staff, city staff, is competent to handle emergencies like this. They performed extraordinarily well, from managers to laborers, to make sure that the city stayed safe from the threat. We identified some points of vulnerability, certainly, along the flood walls. So immediately after the flood, the walls were surveyed, looking for areas where there might be damage, where there might be potential for a breach if it happened again, for weak points in the wall, that we could identify. We realized that. I guess we knew it all along, but it became an urgent matter when the waters reached the top of the span of the Fulton Street Bridge, and suspended under that span are both Consumers Energy's major power lines that service the downtown area, and the city's fiber optic cable lines that are suspended. Rather than being on the bottom of the river, they're suspended up under the bridge. Well, the risk of being hooked by a branch or passing debris and severing one of those lines is pretty significant. So while we were able in both cases to reroute quickly when we realized the imminent danger, we're meeting with Consumers Energy now. We're talking about ways that we could better protect that infrastructure and that asset against future floods. Those, I think, are some learnings. We want to look at. I mean, we threw up an amazing bulwark around the wastewater treatment plant, just in case the waters came over the flood walls down there. I think at their initial projected crest, the water would have been within a foot of the top of that flood wall. So we want to look at whether we can make permanent some of the installations that we've already made around the wastewater treatment plant. For instance, can you take those, what are, at the time they were lovely because they were protecting it. Now they're just ugly 6-foot tall sandbags that ring the front side and around both north and south ends. Can you take those and bury them in a berm, landscape the berm, have something that would be attractive and yet would serve as a levee to protect the wastewater treatment plant? Those are the kinds of things we're looking at right now as we begin to assess. We're still waiting for some word from the federal government. They got real busy out in Oklahoma shortly after they left Grand Rapids, and with the terrible tornadoes out there. But they've sent their teams to Grand Rapids to evaluate the damage and see whether we're eligible both for private property and public property for some reimbursement, some declaration of disaster at the national level that would permit reimbursement of some costs. We remain hopeful, I would say. I'm not terribly optimistic that we'll get much, if anything, from the federal government. But on the other hand, if the city could recover some of its costs, if private property owners could recover some of their costs, it would be a very good thing.
Are there any estimates on what this cost?
Well, initial estimates that went to FEMA right after the flood were about $5 million in, I think it was $5.8 million in private property damage, and another something in the neighborhood of $4 million in public, 4 to 5 in public infrastructure. Those were preliminary numbers. If there is a declaration of disaster, we'll have to firm up those numbers and get, good actual numbers at that. At the early stage we were giving them, they were permitting early estimates. So, and that would include damage to flood walls, damage to homes, properties. The cost of throwing up the protective wall around the wastewater treatment plant, removing trees from the river that lodged on the dam abutments, that sort of thing. All that can become expensive. We had monies within the city's contingent fund to be able to cover those costs. I mean, that's what a contingent fund is for, the unexpected. And this was unexpected, and we could use those monies for that purpose. So it's not like we had to go into debt to do it, but to recover any portion of that money would certainly be a blessing for the city.